Well, everyone's least trusted insider, Hector Gomez, back at it again, chatting and yapping about Vlad's contract.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube or the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. As always, I'm Braden Iwasco. He's Carter First. You can find us on Twitter, Braden5 Iwasco. Carter First, too, as well on Instagram and TikTok at Locked On Blue Jays. If you're new here to YouTube or you're listening anywhere else, make sure you head over to the YouTube page, hit the subscribe button. It helps us out a ton, keeps us top of your page. You guys get shorts, videos, live streams, podcasts, the whole ordeal. Discord link is also down in the description if you guys want to join and chat Blue Jays with us any time of day. I don't know, Carter. We just got to talk about it. I really don't want to because I don't know how much value or whatever you put into all this. But Hector Gomez, back at it, talking about the Vladimir Guerrero Jr. contract. We'll get into the Max Scherzer of it all, some spring training stuff, just some weird stuff going on with the MLB website as well in regards to the Toronto Blue Jays. We'll talk about all that coming up. But we got to start with the big news of the day, or potential big news of the day. So, according to Hector Gomez, the Blue Jays are planning to offer Vladimir Guerrero Jr. a 14 to 15-year deal worth $550 to $600 million. No sources labeled, nothing. Obviously, it's Hector Gomez. He's falsely reported a lot of things. He's correctly reported some things. I put zero value into anything this guy says anymore. Until Ben Nicholson-Smith or one of those guys, Keegan Matheson, somebody tweets something out. I don't know. Hector Gomez, to me, Carter, this guy is sort of a dud. I don't know. And maybe he's got an insider. Maybe he does have some sources telling him that. But I just find anything this guy says now to be super, super hard to believe.
Yeah, we usually say take it with a grain of salt. I don't even think you could say that when it comes to Hector Gomez. It's like, hey, maybe keep it in the back of your head, but definitely don't take it at face value whatsoever. And he has been right about some things. Like, he's not wrong all the time. But as soon as you're wrong once, we talked about this all the time earlier in this offseason, all it takes is that one time that you're wrong and you don't have the correct information. The trust just goes completely out the window, especially when it has happened multiple times, especially multiple times in a short succession. The way this offseason has went with the ups and downs, being in on all these players being out at the end of the day, these podium finishes. After this offseason, it's been tough as a Blue Jays fan to take anything that you see from Hector Gomez with any validity, whether it's positive or negative. So again, you got to hope that he is right on these kind of things. But when we talk about the contract length, like 14, 15 years, we've talked about this multiple times on the podcast, is absolutely ridiculous. Like, I wanted to compare this to somebody because if he signs a 15-year contract, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., his birthday is in March, so next year he will be 27 going into the season. If he signs a 15-year contract, he is getting paid until he is 42 years old. That is not young in baseball terms. That's young in real life terms. But any sports league ever, if you're 42 years old, you're probably not performing up to the standard that you once were. And Miggy had his last year when he was 40 years old. Miguel Cabrera, probably an undisputed Hall of Famer, will get into the Hall of Fame. When he was 40 years old, he had 4 home runs, 34 RBIs, had like a 257 average, which isn't necessarily that bad for a 40-year-old, but he's exclusively DHing. He's not playing defense whatsoever, and he's not really having that offensive production that you would want. And maybe it's what you expect because he's 40 years old, and you kind of understand that, hey, these players, their careers are going to decline as they get older. But 14, 15 years for any baseball player, any player who like whatsoever that is playing past 40 years old, you have to be a different breed. And maybe Vladdy can be productive at that point, but definitely not worth the money that he's asking for.
Carter, I mean, even if he's 22, I'm not taking a shot. There's in no universe should a 14 to 15-year contract be whatsoever worth it. Because if a guy's young enough to be 22 and you sign him to that, will he pan out? Then they start getting up into their mid to late 20s. And then, yeah, you're talking about 40, 42 years old. This is just insane if this is correct. And I guess it is noting it wasn't directly said about what the years would be. But it was closer to what Vladimir Guerrero Jr. wants. So take that with what you will as well. But then Ken Rosenthal of The Athletic reported last Tuesday that Guerrero Jr.'s asking was $500 million in present day value. Again, it's all within that stratosphere, the 500 to 600 million. So I don't know, Carter. This is just it's all a whirlwind because like I keep talking about, it's almost like I just want it to be done. Like I want Vlad here. But at the end of the day, if this is all we're going to be hearing, this is all we've been hearing about all spring training long. And we haven't been able to talk about other guys we've been wanting to because this is taking up everything. And it has to. It is a franchise player. You need to talk about it when things come out, and you have to, cover it. But at the end of the day, it's like it's again, it's that whole spotlight thing around Vladimir Guerrero Jr. There are some young guys having great spring trainings that we have talked about, but maybe not as in depth as we necessarily want. Daulton Varsho, a guy we'll get into, in the coming days. I really want to talk about him. He's had a great spring training, but everything has been directed at Vlad, and no shot at Vlad on this. This one was not his doing whatsoever. This could just be Hector Gomez looking for more clicks. I just don't know what to believe anymore.
Yeah, when we talk about this distraction notice, I think that is definitely getting blown out of proportion because I think that if you're a player like just playing in the league, you're not necessarily worried about what other guys are getting paid. You're going to be focused on the season at hand. Some of these guys aren't even necessarily going to be on the Toronto Blue Jays after 2025. So why would you care about what's going to happen in the future? You have a full season in front of you. So a lot of these guys are still trying to make money. They're in the prime years of their career. Whether they're early on, whether they're on the later set of their career, if they're 35, they're still trying to make money. They still have numbers that they want to produce. They still want to be successful baseball players. So at that end of the day, they're not going to be so distracted on, oh, maybe Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is not going to be here long term. For sure, they have that under consideration if they're trying to sign in a contract extension with the Toronto Blue Jays. Obviously, you want to know who's going to be around. You want to know what the future is going to look like, what the front office is. There going to be stability there? How the prospect pool looks for long-term considerations? Absolutely, that is something that they're going to have to consider when you're talking about players and roster construction. But for just 2025, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is going to be in the building. He is going to be playing at the Rogers Center. So I think with all these, like a lot of false reports that we have been seeing, a lot of just media just blowing this whole thing out of proportion. Yes, maybe it is a distraction for the fans, but I don't think the players are getting distracted by this whatsoever.
No, I don't think so either. I think that just in the media landscape and the fans wise, that's taking up everyone's time right now. When, like I was saying, this is the time where you focus on the young guys and the prospects and who's going to maybe take that step. And it feels like all of the attention is being drawn away from those players to a certain extent. Like we do a podcast every day, Monday to Friday. And yes, we're able to talk about some of these guys, right? The Alan Rodens, Davis Schneider, Jake Bloss, Trey Savage. We're able to talk about some of these guys that are having really good spring trainings. But, for other podcasts, other shows, it's the Vladimir Guerrero Jr. news every single day of the week. I sort of a little bit feel bad for those guys who are doing great things this year in spring training because really the focus has not been around them whatsoever.
I guess when you look at the bigger picture, though, like we always talk about on this podcast, does anyone remember the spring training stats? If you're a Blue Jays fan, the bigger picture, are you worried about Ernie Clement absolutely going off in spring training? Or are you worried about your franchise cornerstone staying with the team long-term past 2025? So from a fan perspective, I do get that. The spring training stuff, like at this point, is obviously it's nice to see like Jose Berrios going 6 innings. It does feel a little bit more like the regular season now. You do have a doubleheader, obviously, on the Monday. So that's a little bit different when you have those split squad games. But it's an interesting. It's going to be just again like interesting to see how this does pan out. Is the contract extension is there no possibility now that he is past his deadline? That doesn't matter if he gets the dollar value that he wants. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and the team can come together with the contract that they both are going to agree to. They're not just going to say again, "Oh, the deadline has passed. We're going to figure this out." But I kind of wanted to circle this back. I forgot one thing when I was talking about the the length of the contract. It was 14 years, 15 years. Because clearly Vladimir Guerrero Jr. thinks he's going to have some sort of long-term stability. If he's asking for 14-15, we saw that report. He would take 20 if they gave it to him. Obviously, he would do that. If you're Vladdy, if you're the Toronto Blue Jays, you're obviously not going to do that. But one guy that obviously was very good in his age 42 season, if you're going to pay Vladimir Guerrero Jr. that 550, 600 million over those years, even if it is 500 million, you're still going to have to expect some sort of production. And I kind of wanted to see what Barry Bonds was doing at age 42. Obviously, one of the guys that played into his age 40 seasons. A little bit of a different scenario here. Was he juicing? Was he not? Obviously, it is proven that he was. So it's a little bit of a different scenario here. But Barry Bonds in his age 42 season hit 28 home runs with a 1,045 OPS and led the majors with a 480 OBP. Does Vladdy think he's going to be putting up those numbers when he's 42? Is that kind of what he's looking for? I get you want the bag. You have the ability to go into free agency. You're going to have other teams compete, and you have the right. You are your own baseball player. You are a very good baseball player in the major leagues. Had the 13th best WAR in the league in 2024. But those numbers, again, that's not the expectation when you're 40 years old, but clearly Vladdy thinks he's going to be a very good baseball player for a very long time. But if you're a major league baseball player, if you're an athlete, you're probably going to bet on yourself the majority of the time.
So no, okay, this is the solution here. Okay, so
you got it figured out.
Yeah, from year 1 to 12, Vlad just plays like Vlad. All right, he's just great and good, and everything's fine. That 12 to 15 seasons, Vlad starts juicing like crazy, and he hits like 50 bombs a year, and crushes any type of record. Maybe breaks Barry Bonds' record too, and just goes all out in his age 42 season. Even if he gets suspended a couple games, just get him on the juice. Get it, maybe the whole team can juice at that point, and just and then win another World Series in Vlad's 15 in the 15th year of that contract. I think that's the plan moving forward.
See, and then if he gets suspended, I mean, he's 40 years old anyway. Like, he's probably near the end of his career at that point. If he gets suspended, gets kicked out of the league, not really a big deal for the Toronto Blue Jays. But another fix that you kind of brought up for this contract, I don't think anyone would have a problem with the Vladimir Guerrero Jr. contract, even if it was $1 billion, if he brings a few World Series to the Toronto Blue Jays. If he at the end of his career, he wins 2-3 World Series, I don't think anyone's going to care if they're paying Vladdy $100 million a year. If they're winning, if they're producing the results with Vladimir Guerrero Jr., that's all that any baseball fan wants anyway.
Yeah, I know. You got to be happy. Again, is whatever it is, whatever the years are, whatever the money is, pay him. It's not my money. I don't care. As long as the Blue Jays are going to go out and spend to surround Vlad with more talent, I could not care less. In 15 years, Carter, me and you are going to be sitting here, old and gray, and yelling at our screens about how, Vlad's playing terrible. We're paying him this much. Who cares? Maybe we got 2 World Series. Maybe we got none, and life just sucks. But
maybe we don't even have a playoff win at that time. Imagine that. We're 40 years old, and we don't even have a Toronto Blue Jays playoff win with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. But obviously, it's easy to say it's not our money for us, because we're not going out and paying Vladdy $500 million, $550 million, $450 million. That's another thing as well. Like, there's been some, like the Ken Rosenthal's, the BNSs have come out with numbers around $500 million, and those are the more trusted sources. But if you're just looking at this entire situation in general, we've seen 340 at the start of this offseason. We've seen 585 from David Ortiz. How much validity can you put in that? I don't know. We've seen $600 million. We've seen 15 years. We've seen 14 years. We've seen 12 years, 20 years, 10 years. We've seen so many different figures getting thrown out there. And again, you do have your more trusted insiders. But at the end of the day, are these the actual numbers that are being presented? We won't fully know until there is a contract signing, or Vladimir Guerrero Jr. does end up signing, God forbid, with another baseball team.
Yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. We're going to have to play this by ear. I feel like this is going to drag on into the season. We're not going to get an answer before opening day. So whatever it is, let's enjoy it. Baseball's back. It's nice outside for mostly, Carter, here in Winnipeg. I mean, we're getting good temperatures. I'm getting ready for golf season, slow pitch. It's all coming. It just feels great this time of year. And it's like as soon as baseball kicks off, it's just the world turns back to how it should be. It's not freezing. I'm not, we're sitting in the basement just trying to wait and rip MLB The Show until until the sun starts to peak out again in the summer. Anyway, let's talk about some Max Scherzer, because he talks about his injury, and we were a little baffled by it, I think, Carter, just by the statements he put out. So we'll get into all that right after this break. We do have a different type of ad coming in the second break, or I don't even want to say ad. It's not really an ad. It is about the Locked On Bracket Breakdown. It's called the promotion. Take a look at it. Wait till that second break. Make sure you guys stay tuned in for that as well. We got tons more to come at you guys right after this short break. Carter, today's episode is brought to you by Just Ingredients. When it comes to fueling your body, quality matters. That's why Just Ingredients is changing the game with clean, high-quality products designed to support better health and peak performance. Listen, I got some stuff from them. I got some pre-workout from them and some protein. It tastes great. It goes down easy. Sometimes I'm not a big fan of certain brands' proteins. You're sort of sitting there just slugging it back. This stuff tastes great. It's clean. That's the other big part of it, is all this stuff is clean. So it's really, really easy and tastes great. Just Ingredients offers an NSF certified line of protein powder, electrolytes, pre-workouts, creatine, all religiously tested to ensure they're free from substance banned by major athletic organizations. Just Ingredients has also partnered with two-time MVP Bryce Harper, who trusts their NSF certified sports line to fuel his training and recovery. Listen, if this stuff's going to help me perform even a 1/1,000,000th of what Bryce Harper is, I'm taking. And that's what they do. They make great stuff. Next time I do this this ad, I'll pull it out for you guys. They look great. It tastes great. It feels great. Visit justingredients.us/Bryce Harper and use code LOCKEDONMLB for 20% off your order. And for more wellness tips, follow at just.ingredients on Instagram.
Today's episode is also sponsored by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you can stop managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized how much I was spending on food delivery. Now I am smarter and save more, especially, when you're out with your friends. Online shopping is another bad one for this. It's very easy to get those budgets out of control, especially when you're online shopping. You buy one thing, you see another deal, it leads to another sale, and there you go. You've already spent $500. That is not in your budget, and now you got to take other money out of your budget in other areas of your life, and it just makes it one big hassle. With Monarch Money, it saves you from all that stress in your life. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money and use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first order. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year.
All right, we got to get into it. The Max Scherzer injury, Carter. So obviously he had some thumb issues, I guess we'll call it. He had some flare-ups during his recovery a day after starting. That's what Hazel May reports. This is what Max Scherzer said. My thumb hurts. It hurts to grip the ball. The critical thing I've learned over the years here is that your thumb is absolutely critical to your arm health. Unfortunately, this is what I've been dealing with since 2023. Does it scare you at all, Carter?
Yeah, I mean, it's not great when you look at, what happened last year. Max Scherzer pitching under 50 innings. I would call that a pretty unsuccessful season. If Max Scherzer is not able to pitch more than 50 innings for this Toronto Blue Jays team, even at 100 innings. If you can't get around there, I think it would be fairly unsuccessful, especially when you were in on guys like Corbin Burns, Max Fried. You get Max Scherzer, not the worst case scenario. I think he still can be productive, but he's got to be on the field to be productive for this baseball team, especially when you have a 40-year-old and it's, again, in spring training and you start seeing these injuries. He said that 50 pitches is where he starts to see that right thumb being sore. If you watch baseball games, you know that starting pitchers probably go more than 50 pitches the majority of the time. At least you want them to go more than 50 pitches. You want them to eat some of these innings, 50 pitches. If you can get 4 innings out of that, I think you'd be pretty lucky. That's not exactly what the Toronto Blue Jays are looking for. So yeah, definitely not what you want to hear when you hear right thumb soreness. Again, when we talked about in the last episode, you don't think this should be a long, lingering injury, but clearly it's something to do with this grip that is causing this thumb soreness. And I don't know if he's going to be able to figure it out, but something needs to change, obviously, if this has been lingering since 2023.
Yeah, and that's the big issue, right? It's this recurring problem. And when I look at what Max Scherzer's been saying here, Carter, again, he says as we move down as well, into what else he said was that it's critical to your arm health. And that's something that I wanted to really go in on, because when Max Scherzer talks about his thumb and how that may affect his arm, his shoulder, whatever you want to call it, here's a little bit of an explanation, all right? Because I feel like people are going to see this and say, how does your thumb affect your shoulder or your elbow or whatever? This is a little bit of the answer for you, and not making excuses, because it doesn't always. But in some cases, when you get sports injuries, say it's your shoulder or your arm, something like that. I broke my collarbone. When I broke my collarbone, what I noticed was that the rest of my, I guess would be my right side of my body, would tend to try to overwork to compensate for the left side of my body. And so I'd still try to train the right side so that, I would be able to get right back pitching and I wouldn't have to miss more time, anything like that. Same thing when I broke my wrist. I try to still train my left side so that, I wouldn't lose swing, nothing like that. And when that happens, it's overcompensation on the opposite side of your body, which then can lead to injuries that way. And I think that this is what Max Scherzer's more so talking about, instead of just, oh, well, my thumb hurts, so now my shoulder hurts. No, that's not how it works. But you change up one little thing when you're pitching or when you're throwing, and that can lead to injuries, right? You grip the ball a little bit different. Carter, you texted me this and you said, is it because he grips the ball a little bit tighter or a little bit looser to take over for this? And that can definitely be a part of it. Just changing a dynamic, a certain way that you're pitching the baseball might be different for your body. And each pitcher is very different. And each batter, each whatever you want to call it, in every sport is a little bit different in the way they do things. And one change can lead to other type of problems with the way they're throwing the ball.
That's a huge problem on the mound, is you want your pitchers to be comfortable. And obviously, Max Scherzer is not comfortable on their mound right now with that right thumb soreness. And obviously, if you have these lingering injuries for a few years, you got to change something. But with pitching, it's so tedious. You make a little bit of a switch, you move your finger even half an inch, and your pitch is not doing the same thing that it was before when you had that original grip. So it's a tough scenario where if you tweak something, you could lose that entire pitch entirely. So they got to err on the side of caution when they're talking about Max Scherzer, because obviously you do want this guy pitching. You do want this guy to be on the field so he can produce for your baseball team. But at the same time, you don't want to switch too many things that, you lose that effectiveness of the pitches. You lose the break. Maybe you lose some of that drop off, whatever it is, depending on obviously the pitch that he is throwing. But when you think it is Max Scherzer, he is one of the best pitchers of our generation. He probably has gone through something like this before. Again, a veteran in the league. You do think he's got to be able to be equipped for situations like this to kind of change it on the fly and come in on that attack mode and still be an effective pitcher. Even at this point of his career, he wouldn't sign his contract with the Toronto Blue Jays if he wasn't betting on himself. So I think Max Scherzer at the end of this, again, you do want him on the field. But from everything we've seen from the John Schneider quotes, from just how they've been approaching this whole situation, they're definitely erring on the side of caution when regarding Max Scherzer. It seems like they're doing that with Daulton Varsho. And we've seen the safety net quotes from Ross Atkins saying, oh, we kind of want to abandon this safety net approach. But at the end of the day, when you're looking at some of these injuries, whether it could be a week or two, or if you rush them back, maybe it's a month, maybe it's a full season. I think when it comes to this stuff, you do still have to err on the side of caution, especially when you haven't even gotten to the regular season yet.
Yeah, you can't go out there and expect guys to play through injuries right at the beginning of the year. Obviously, you don't want guys to be injured, but sometimes you just have to eat that a little bit. And they knew the risk going into the Max Scherzer deal. This was something that we talked about on the live stream the first day when they made that signing of Max Scherzer, was the injury history and him getting up there in age. This stuff is going to be more prominent. And sure enough, spring training, it's back. It scares me that it's happening so early, and I don't necessarily know if there's an immediate fix. And is it just, hey, I got to give this time, but then you give it time and you go back to pitching and then it flares up again? Maybe this is it for Max Scherzer, Carter. And I hate to say that, but this could be it. If this is a lingering problem throughout this year as well, I think we're seeing the final year of Max Scherzer.
See, and this isn't even that big of a problem if it's later on in the season, because you do have Alek Manoah back coming some point in the midseason, probably a little bit towards the second half. But early on in the season like this, when it's Max Scherzer, you have Bowden Francis struggling a little bit that we got to go into at some point on this podcast. There's been a lot coming out, so we haven't gotten to that point yet. But if you have, again, we talked about this with the bullpen. We talked about this throughout the lineup as well. You have a couple guys that either get injured or don't produce up to the expectation. If you have Bowden Francis who's not producing, you have Max Scherzer who's injured. Then you have Yariel Rodriguez who hasn't had that good of a spring training either. And now you're left with this situation where you don't necessarily have a lot of depth for the starting rotation. And if you only have 3 of your 5 guys that are pitching that are going to give you shots to win, the other 2 games you're kind of throwing out and just hoping that you can split a series and get 1 win out of those 2 games, that's probably not going to lead to a lot of long-term success, especially when you're in the AL Beast and you have the Baltimore Orioles, you have the Boston Red Sox, you have the Tampa Bay Rays, they're always a tough game. You have the New York Yankees. I know they have been plagued with injuries, but it is still a very tough division. So any injuries, especially early on in the season that we've always talked about, are not necessarily a good sign for the Toronto Blue Jays. So whether it's Max Scherzer, whether it's, again, hopefully it's not another important player on this Toronto Blue Jays team, if they have to sacrifice a little bit of the earlier on in the season when it comes to the injuries, you don't want to, because we talked about that in the last episode, how you want this team to start hot, especially with a little bit of a gauntlet at the start of the season. But if you have to sacrifice 2 weeks to save your entire season, kind of cut off the arm to save the whole body sort of thing, that is something that they're going to have to be prepared to do.
Yeah, and we'll have to wait and see. Again, I think it would be a mistake to bring up some of these young guys early too. So you really have big decisions to make, and we'll see how they go about this. Maybe you don't want to start the season throwing a bullpen day on your fifth game, right? So again, have to wait and see. Hopefully, more comes out on this Max Scherzer stuff before opening days, so we get a clear picture of what this team is going to look like at the start of the season. But Carter, we still got some more stuff to get into. I know you have some that you want to bring up directly from the MLB website. I believe that they're I don't know if they're misreporting certain things or if I'll leave it in a little bit of suspense because it's just very strange. And there's been a lot of websites that have been doing this lately. So we'll talk about this right after we come back from this short break.
Today's episode is sponsored by Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site that's made for the skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're plumbing, HVAC, or in electrical work, Supply House has the most reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands, find exactly what you're looking for delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for the trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code ACE or SH5 for 5% off your first order. That is SH5, 5% off your first order. And that's at supplyhouse.com.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the bracket breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
So there you go. Little bracket challenge. I know the boys are going to be competing in it. All of Locked On, we have like our own bracket challenge that we're doing with all the hosts. So me and Carter are going to throw in separately, see how we do. I'm not a big NCAA guy. I don't watch a ton of basketball. But every time March Madness comes around, Carter, I'm sort of all in. I usually just pick a team and I'm like, all right, let's go. I'm riding with, whoever this year. I haven't even taken a huge look at it. I got to start doing some research. So tomorrow morning will be me putting in my bracket. So again, we'll let you guys know how we do and all that. But Carter, let's get right into it. The MLB website, what is going on, dude? I'm a little bit confused.
Yeah, it's a little bit interesting to see how these have all changed recently. I quickly wanted to go over like the bracket challenge thing, though. I'm not a big basketball guy and one of my biggest negative aspects of the NBA is I find it's very predictable. And that's why I love March Madness, because you have no idea what's going to happen ever. There's always upsets all the time. If you pick the one seed, you're probably going to be wrong 99.9% of the time. It's pretty much like buying a lottery ticket. Anything can happen in March Madness. And just, the upsets, obviously the buzzer beaters, those clutch shots, that's what kind of drives me to the March Madness. So I am excited to make a bracket. We encourage all of you guys to make a bracket as well. But the MLB always takes hikes. They always have weights, stuff like that. Obviously, just as before the season starts, you get like the headshots, all that kind of tedious stuff out of the way, just in case, again, fans look up, oh, how much does this guy weigh? How tall is this guy? Just to have that information available. The MLB update again. They update this every year, and somehow, unless I'm not sure how this got this skewed, but a lot of the Toronto Blue Jays players have all of a sudden either grew or shrunk, according to the MLB website. We have 8 players on this that somehow have changed heights from this last season. Vladdy was he was recorded at 6'2". Apparently he's 6 foot now, so lost 2 inches. Sorry, Vladdy, but you're still over 6 foot. Congratulations. Springer 6'3". I don't think that seems right at all. Reported as 6'1". Santander 6'2", now 6 foot. Varsho 5'11", gets to that 6 foot hump. You'll love to see that. Bichette goes from 6 foot to 5'11". Ernie Clement 6 foot to 5'11". Will Wagner 5'11" to 6 foot. And Joey Loperfido 6'3" to 6'2". The only thing that I could possibly see from how this worked before is maybe in 2024, these were self-reported heights and these, got the measuring tape out, probably not the most concise thing, but you would think that if you're going to lie about your height, you're not going to shortchange yourself, especially as a guy. You always see that 6 foot stereotype. So I think you would lie in that direction. But it's really interesting to see how within 1 year, somehow 8 Toronto Blue Jays have had their heights changed.
Yeah, Carter, it's like me on dating profiles. I'm 6'5" in all my dating profiles.
Exactly. That's how you got to do it. Sometimes you got to lie. Maybe, they're trying to manipulate that strike zone a little bit. They hear that the ABS strike zone's coming in. They do it off a height. They're just going to lie. I'd make myself a little bit shorter. I'm going to say, hey, I'm 5'5" actually out there. Give
Yeah.
me a 12-inch strike zone compared to that Aaron Judge 24-inch strike zone. So maybe it's a little bit of a competitive advantage they're thinking about for the future.
Yeah, well, there's that, and there's also what I noticed even last year and a couple of years ago was the stats. The stats wouldn't be reported right away, or they'd be reported wrong, and then they would have to go back in and change them. So we'd look at stats maybe one day, and the next day we go in and something's different, and that's a little frustrating too. I don't know for some of you guys who use different apps and whatever else. Baseball Reference is a great website to use if you want to keep up on the day-to-day stats of players. That's where I usually go to take a look at everything and a full breakdown on a lot of stuff. There's a ton that are great. Fangraphs, Savant, all these places really do a fantastic job. Sometimes MLB lacks, and that's honestly a lot of the different leagues when they run their own website. It's a little slower than some of these ones that are done by fans and by other big corporations as well. So yeah, I take it with a grain of salt, like whatever. Honestly, it doesn't affect me, but if I go look up and I don't know, for some reason I need Vladimir Guerrero's height and weight, and I'm not checking the MLB website for that. I'll tell you that for free.
Yeah, obviously not that big of a deal in retrospect, but just a little bit of a funny thing from the MLB. Just somehow, they got to figure out that height situation. Like they gotta maybe we need them measuring our heights for our locked on profiles. They can put me again, like you said, maybe match your dating profile at 6'5". You can make me. I take even 6'3" at this point. I'm not a short guy, but I'm not quite 6'3". I would take a couple more inches to be a little bit taller. Maybe maybe I'd be in March Madness if I had a little bit of height. Playing and maybe upsetting some of the American college teams in the bracket.
Yeah, I always say, I thought I was always going to be the tall one when I hit 6 feet, and then my brother, who was probably I thought was always going to be shorter than me, is now 6'3", and it just really upsets me, Carter. I get very frustrated.
He's no longer the younger brother. He's the older brother. You're looking up at him, unfortunately for you. There is one more thing I wanted to quickly get into. Not going to cover this too much, but got to bring it up because there is another injury for the Toronto Blue Jays. Doesn't seem to be that serious, but not great, especially when it is a younger player. This is from Arden Swelling. Carlos Martinez was removed from today's game against the Philadelphia Phillies with a left hip contusion. He's considered day-to-day. But it's the guy that threw the pitch at him. It's the guy that we know relatively well. I think he probably a little more relatively, but it's Jordan Romano. Is this a little bit of sabotage, a little bit of revenge because the Toronto Blue Jays didn't offer him a contract?
Yeah, it's revenge for sure. It is. Yeah, they're like, oh, this young guy is going to do really great things. Jordan Romano, just his psychopath self comes up to the mound and he's like, I know what I'm doing. He gives a little hat tip to the bench.
The conspiracy theory is that Aroldis Martinez said that his doctor gave him those PEDs last year. It was actually Jordan Romano. Jordan Romano was sending him off to failure, and he's doing it again. He's taking away some of the Blue Jays' success with Aroldis Martinez. Apparently has a hit out on the guy for some reason.
Yeah, Jesus. All right. Well, thanks everybody for listening. We're back tomorrow. We're going to preview how the Red Sox and the Blue Jays compare. We've done this with the Orioles and the Yankees already, and I'll give you a little bit of a tease. The Red Sox are my dark horse to win the AL East. Thanks a bunch for listening, guys. We'll be back tomorrow. Make sure you guys do hit that subscribe button, and we'll keep you guys up to date on what goes on, I guess, on the Monday episode, Carter, for the after the fantasy draft. We'll update everybody where the Blue Jays went, everything like that as well. We have we will have our Dallin Wilton, Skylar Peters bold takes, hot takes, predictions episode. It's a little bit up in the air right now. We're trying to get that all smoothed out so we can get those episodes out to you guys before the season gets underway. So if there are bets that you guys want to place, Skylar Peters, Dallin Wilton, and the two of us will break down everything, where to put your money, where not to, or just for, hey, who's going to do well. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow.